Are you a spiritual teacher? I was going to name this, Am I a Spiritual Teacher? But I think it's obviously much broader than that because we can be much more than we are aware of sometimes. I'm not trying to force a round peg into a square hole in terms of what our mindsets are, but a lot of times we don't perceive, we misperceive. Like you probably see other people in your life, you see that they think of themselves a certain way, but you see them in a higher way in terms of their potential or recognizing their limiting beliefs getting by their blind spots. We live, unfortunately, I mean all of us, but to varying degrees and in varying times and situations, we live in limiting beliefs. So the stronger we hold to a belief, the more true we think it is, but strength of belief doesn't mean trueness of belief, it just means strength of belief. So we could believe things strongly that are not true or that are less true. So a lot of people, for example, believe that they're unworthy or that they're incompetent or that they're failures or that they're, these are not absolute beliefs because people have more confidence in one area than another or in one time period than another. But what happens is identity tends to stabilize. Like we don't say, today I'm a success. Like in the last 5 minutes, we tend to say, I'm a success or I'm a failure. We tend to generalize. And I think we do that for a lot of different reasons. I discuss this a lot in my books, but we try to know ourselves because we think that gives us security. Like if we know ourselves and we know other people and we know the world, then life becomes predictable. But it's just what we're telling ourselves. Life is not predictable. Nobody expected this pandemic. And the only reason why life seems predictable is because we tell ourselves that we foresaw things coming. But at a more higher level, it's just the world is doing what it's doing independent of what we think about it. And some days we may say that it's going the way that we expected, and some days we may say that it's not. I mean, Einstein talked a lot about perspective, and that even time and space are perspective. Because if you stood on a planet that was traveling at the speed of light, it would basically spend time in space. I'm not a physicist, so if I didn't get that completely 100% correct, don't follow me. But basically, the theory of relativity and just spirituality in general is that this is just one small aspect, obviously, but and this is part of physics also, we are not a neutral observer. Like, we actually affect the world by observing it. They find that, like, electrons or particles or whatever, they could be in a state of free flow, or that when we observe them, that they stabilize. So our identity is free flowing, and it's in some sense has both a knowable and an unknowable aspect, but we freeze it by knowing it. We freeze it through our self-concept. So are we spiritual teachers? Yes, because we came into this world, we came into this bodies to expand, and we expand through our interactions with each other and the world, with pets, with everything that this world has to offer, with sunlight, with space, with Mars. Everything is affecting everything because everything is emitting energy. And that energy is just everywhere. It's pulsating and it's integrated. Like one of the laws of thermodynamics says the energy could be neither created or destroyed. It can only be transformed. So your body will become part of the ground, and a flower will grow out of it, and your spirit, your consciousness will go wherever it goes. I mean, that's a whole other discussion. But we are spiritual teachers because we are evolving our consciousness. Sometimes it seems like we're going backwards rather than forwards, but I always use the analogy of baseball, the bases. It's like when you're home, you can think of home being your source. But then when you hit the ball, you run towards first. So it's like you're running away from your source. And then when you get to first base, you start to run to second. It's like you're running further away from your source. But paradoxically, every step that you're taking away from your source is actually bringing you back to your source. Now, Why do we have to round the bases? Why can't we just stay home? Because it's the journey that defines our consciousness to a higher perspective. It's kind of like a spiral staircase. I always use that analogy also. It's like a spiral staircase comes back to the same point over and over again, but does from a higher vantage point. Like from space, you can see the Earth, but you can see it from a higher vantage point. And your experience, if you learn from it especially, brings you to a higher vantage point. So like the baseball analogy of the bases, we're coming back home and we're circling the bases many, many times, like in the spiral staircase, but we're, through our experience and through our expanded consciousness, we're able to see things in a higher way. So the things that used to bother us don't bother us as much. So it's like rinse and repeat. We have interactions in life where people frustrate us or anger us or whatever. Then we go through the situation over and over and over and over again until we learn how to transcend it, how to integrate it with love and have it be part of our integrated self as opposed to something outside of ourselves that frustrates us. I mean, that's a whole topic into itself also. So in terms of spiritual teachers, we all are in this world teaching each other. My last podcast, or one of the recent ones, talked about how we communicate even with each other telepathically, like when we think about each other. It's the degree to which we're open to us, because thoughts are things. You can't injure someone with your thoughts. I mean, you can if they're open to it and if they allow you to, but everybody has free will. And that's why thoughts could be beneficial or healing or dangerous, based upon our level of consciousness or our level of receptivity. Like some people talk about bad omens. If they're open to negative thoughts, if they're open to negative spirits, you can be affected to them. But what is the fundamental effect of your being is the essence of your being, which is pure, and the evolved consciousness, and the evolution of your consciousness of your spirit. So everything is always to our greater good. And success, like they say, we think it's a straight line, but it's really this convoluted mess of 2 steps forward, 3 steps to the right, 4 steps backwards, 1 step to up, 2 steps down, 4 steps. It doesn't have to be that way. I mean, maybe it does or maybe it doesn't, but we tend to make it that way because we're not clear of where we're going. Like if we were very clear, but clarity, like they say, good judgment. I forget exactly how it goes, but comes from experience, and it's kind of a circular thing with good judgment and bad judgment. I forget exactly how that saying goes, but you may have heard of it. But we're all spiritual teachers because we're all here to grow, to learn from each other, to evolve our souls, to be a benefit to each other, to communicate with each other. I mean, in a matter of time, if we don't kill ourselves as a species, which I hope obviously we don't, we'll be traveling the galaxy, the cosmos. Like in this pandemic, for example, some people are petrified and think the world is coming to an end, while other people remain extremely optimistic and think that this challenge is going to make us stronger as a species. So they find that at any time, like even in depressions, there's some people that become fabulously wealthy, and even in great times, there's some people that go bankrupt. So it's not so much the circumstances. I mean, circumstances do play a role, but it's really the consciousness and the preparedness and the ability to be resourceful in the face of those circumstances. So you are a spiritual teacher.